In the first episode of the Soul Sovereignty and Sexuality podcast last week, I talked a lot about why the soul and recognition of the soul is so essential to coming back into Holy Communion, to experiencing sacred sexuality or sacred union. And recognition of our soul is also the key to reclaiming our divine power, to reclaiming our sovereignty. And in order to go into more depth about this in future episodes, I want to start by let's just talk about what the soul is, what the soul means. We might have varied perceptions of this. In a way, we can't even really describe the soul with words because the soul is felt, the soul is experienced. But I want to give a little context, at least of my own definition of soul and how I'm using it as a soul embodiment guide. What are we even talking about? What are we actually embodying? What does that mean? And so for me, the soul is the individuated aspect of the divine that is you. So if we imagine the divine, let's just, for the sake of this, as this big ball of light, as this energy. And it begins to, in a way, separate and radiate various light rays out, like a sun. And each of those light rays is divine because it comes from that divine source. And yet each light ray would be a soul. And that light ray comes onto planet Earth. And as it arrives here, it creates and takes on physical form. So that light ray, aka soul, is what shapes and forms and becomes you, your physicality. Your body is created by the energy of your soul, which is why the body is the key to sovereignty, because when you go into the body, you're not connecting purely with the physicality of your body. You are connecting with the energy of your soul that inhabits and forms your physical body. That's the difference between embodiment and soul embodiment, is that we very specifically work with the body to access the energy of the soul, so that you can connect to your soul's truth, so that you can live according to your soul's truth, which is your inner truth, not according to the external truths fed to us by others, or inherited, or even adopted because of trauma in this life or another. And so as the soul takes on this physical form, at least in this body, on this planet, the soul carries all of its wisdom, knowledge, information from past parallel lives. I say past parallel because, there is no time and space. It's not linear. And so your soul can simultaneously be experiencing a past life in the present moment because your energy is in both. So I'll get more into that in future episodes, talking more specifically about what I mean and why your energy body is giving you access to multidimensional realities. Whole different topic. But for the sake of today, I want you to start to feel into how you define the soul. Because the soul is your true essence. The soul is felt. It's experienced. I had a comment on the first podcast that I did last week that said, there is no biological evidence for the soul. And it's true, because the soul is not limited to physicality. So there's not going to be biological, scientific, logical, rational evidence for the soul, because the soul exists beyond time and space. The soul is not limited to physicality. The soul is not something we can put under a microscope and be like, oh yeah, there it is. You see that? But what we do know from quantum physics is that we are all energy. And our eyes perceive us as physical, right? We perceive the physicality of our bodies, but that our vision is limited. And the reality is that everything that we see as dense physical matter is actually vibrating and moving, and it's energy at its core, as are we. And so we can at least recognize that from quantum science, from quantum physics, even though we don't have like biological proof. And quite frankly, I don't need biological proof that I have a soul, because I can feel it and connect with it and hear it and see it through feeling states and being states. And I am in awe at the magic and mystery of that. And that's part of the soul realm. It's also part of the feminine. It's mysterious, it's magical, it's not logical. And if we try to purely see ourselves or our soul or the world through physical eyes and science, as much as I love science, we're limiting ourselves, because magic and love and our desire, our pleasure, our beingness, our life, all of that, it's not tangible. It's felt, it's experienced, it's something that we connect to, that we attune to, that we align to. It's not something that we can hold physically and look at. Can you prove to somebody that you love them? No. And if you try to prove to somebody you love them, yeah, we could have a whole conversation about that too, about why that is probably not a healthy thing to do. But you can't put love in a box. You can't put love and make it tangible. It is felt. And it can be felt so strongly that it literally drives people to madness sometimes. And it's the same with the soul. It can be felt, it can be experienced, but we can't put it in a box. I felt my soul at a very young age, and I'm curious if it's the same for you. When you first connected to your soul, what does that feel like for you when you connect to your soul? Because for me, it's like a force that I feel in my chest. It's a force of my heart that I know is the essence of me, my beingness. Your soul is your unique essence. Go back to the divine light, like a sun. Each fragment of light, each light ray is unique. It cannot be like all the others. It's the same with your soul. Your soul is unique. Your soul is only you can be that, your essence. Which means when you're starting to identify as who you are, most of us are taught to identify with what I'll call the ego self, or the purely physical self, the limited self, the small self, which is the self that we come to know through our achievements, through our roles, through what we have, what we possess, what we do. Like, for example, when I was a criminal prosecutor and an attorney, I identified as an attorney. I identified as a successful person. I identified as, having a law degree. I identified with those things, and I saw myself through the eyes of these external things that defined me, that made me who I was, that made me worthy, that gave me value, I thought. And then my soul started to wake me up. One pretty dramatic event after another. And I began to question. This is in 2008. It really started for me, even though I had been in touch with my soul, it really started for me after I experienced a flood in which I lost everything just overnight, pretty much, in a matter of hours. And I had just purchased a new townhome. I was in the middle of this big jury trial. And suddenly everything I, quote, worked for was gone. And I really had to question, what am I doing and why? And whose path is this? Why did I choose this? Why am I doing this? And don't get me wrong, I loved the act of being an attorney, the act of analyzing large amounts of information and investigating and working with the people I worked with and focusing on justice. And I loved that. But my path no longer made sense because I was living based on an external identity. And my soul wanted me to begin developing an internal identity. We connect to our soul when we go in, when we connect with our own energy, our own heart, our own feelings, our own experience, our own body, our own thoughts. Your soul is not the thought or the feeling or even the experience. Your soul is what is having the thought, having the experience, having the feeling. Your soul is, you could call it the observer, the witness, the part of you that is beyond the thought, the feeling, the experience, the action, the choice, the word, the part of you that is invincible. The soul can never die. The soul can never be killed. The soul will always exist as pure energy. And yes, there's a lot more to this we could explore. But for the sake of today's conversation, the soul is ultimately wanting us to remember it and to come back into union with it. Now, not everybody in this life is going to do that. And everybody in this lifetime wants to do that. Maybe you're listening and you're like, yeah, I much prefer to focus on the external world and keep doing my thing and living according to society's expectations and rules and demands. And I'm good with that. And I don't really want to question more and do more. Good, so be it. That's fine. Then that means your soul's not here for this, or you haven't decided that yet. And that's okay. But I imagine if you're listening to this, some part of you, your soul likely, is asking you to shift your perception of reality from the perspective of your limited human 3D purely physical self, aka what some people would call the ego, into the true version of who you are. And to shift your perception in my ecstatic soul embodiment course, which is now self-guided because we've been doing it live together, is all about awakening divine perception in week 1. Because that is the first step. We have to literally shift our perception to recognize the divine within self first. And to begin to see that from that perspective of your soul. To begin to see yourself from the perspective of your soul. To begin to see the world from that higher perspective. Your soul has a frequency. We need to attune to that frequency, which is also part of ecstatic soul embodiment. And we'll probably spend a whole episode on this at some point. And learn how to connect with the soul truth inside by going into the body to connect with the energy of the soul, because the energy of the soul is what forms your body. And then you begin to live from the inside out. Versus taking the external world in and making it yours. And that is how you become sovereign. And that is also how you reclaim your power. It's the first step to reclaiming your power from all external sources. So it resides where it belongs, inside of you, not based on all the external things or the other people or the approval, not being judged, other people valuing you, all that, right? That's all how we give our power away. And becoming your own authority, which is sovereignty, to be your own authority, to belong to you, to be whole and complete unto self, to choose deeply for you, based on your inner truth, not societal expectations, not the way you're told it's supposed to be. Because the soul exists beyond time and space, which means it can know what your mind can never know. When you start to live according to your soul's truth, not only do you experience more magic and miracles in your life, but the veils between the worlds then. And you were guided from within to a much greater reality than you could ever experience if you just see yourself in the world from purely physical eyes. And so until the next episode, next week, really begin to just feel into that essence of your soul. Maybe you already know this. Maybe you already connect with this. Do it more intentionally. Do it more consciously. I feel it is so important we do this every day. And I'll talk more about how we can connect more deeply in future episodes. And if you don't know how to connect with the essence of your true self, your soul self, your divine self, then ask, just make a silent prayer, a silent request, an intention from deep within you. Soul, help me connect with you. Soul, help me feel you. Soul, guide me, help me open my eyes. And begin to develop that receptivity that is essential to do this work. If you want to go deeper, the Ecstatic Soul Embodiment Program is available now. And it's only $333. And it is a potent, packed, full online program of teachings and practices and journal prompts so that you can begin to connect way more deeply with your soul's truth and activate your ecstatic life force essence so that you reclaim your power and sovereignty. And I'm really excited about this. We're in the live version of it now. We're a little over halfway through, and I just know that this is going to change your life, because it is already transforming the lives of those in it and their perceptions and their experiences of themselves and the world and their relationships. So you can reach out to me at thepathttosovereignty.com. Find out more about Ecstatic Soul Embodiment there. I'll put the link in the show notes, and would love to hear from you, what you think, what questions you have, what you want on future episodes, and I will see you next week. Much love to you.